what Comey is doing here. This is not a matter of free speech. The question is whether or not the facts support that he was threatening the president.
That's right. And it's not a strict liability crime, Will. They've got to prove intent, that he intentionally or knowingly made these statements with that specific intent. They may have some evidence that there's more to this than simply shells on a beach. But remember, for a grand jury to indict, it's a low standard. The old saying, you can indict a ham sandwich. It's probable cause. To prove this case, they've got to prove it to 12 jurors unanimously beyond all reasonable doubt. Now, the feds, I was one for years, federal prosecutor, have a 97, 98% conviction rate. And I would say that the odds of getting a conviction on this, based on what little I know, is going to be very difficult.
Well, the question, and then I'll turn this to you now, John, is a question of fact, and that is, did Comey intend? I don't like the word threaten. We actually have it on the screen right now. I like the word incitement.
Right.
I think it's actually more accurate of what we're talking about here. Threatened always suggests, I am going to do something to you. What we're really talking about here is, are you inciting others to do something violent against you, against, in this case, the president? And the question of fact will be, what did Comey mean by 86? 86 does have multiple meanings. It doesn't always mean murder or violence. It can mean being fired or whatever it means. So the question is, to David's point, what was Comey's intent?
I think that's exactly right. But it doesn't mean what's his subjective intent. It means what do you and me, Will, as reasonable observers looking at what Comey posted, or what would a reasonable juror think his message meant? It doesn't mean that Comey, for example, ever intended to try to kill the president. It doesn't mean that Comey expected any third party to kill the president. All that the government has to prove here under Supreme Court cases is not just Brandenburg, as you cited. That's a very important case. That's Watt's case is a very important case. The court has just said, and the lower courts have said, he just had to intend to make the threat, or as you said, aim to threaten the life of the president,
right,
even if he himself didn't have the intention to carry it out.
And you say in the mind of a reasonable person. Not necessarily do we have to climb inside the mind of James Comey, but how a reasonable person would read that. And David, I'll go to you last. What kind of evidence can you marshal?
Well, I agree that you're over the target when you say this is about incitement. I don't think anybody believes that Comey was telling the world that he was going to go kill President Trump. But it's like the Jimmy Kimmel, the drumbeat of all these folks lighting fires everywhere. And then when the house burns down, everyone says, oh, my gosh, how did that happen? This is about whether he, in my mind, whether he was inciting other people to kill the president. This is the third time they've tried, and everyone just walks away and says, oh, my gosh,
right,
how did this happen? It's about incitement, not Comey threatening to kill Trump per se.
Right. And obviously the timing of this is important to this entire
It's tearing the country apart.
Right. All right, David, John, thank you both for being with us here today. Good analysis. All right, I hope you will stay with us, because we're going to bring in now Missouri Senator Josh Hawley when we come back to talk about this and much more.